Well, here I am by the copper hearth with a nice fire going. I'm going to read a short story by Walter Macken. This is called Gaeglers and the Wild Geese. It was only a man of exceptional daring who would face Bowler after, let's use the right spade word, robbing him. Because it was robbery, whatever way you look at it. And afterward, Bowler lay awake many a long night thinking about it and fulminating and imagining his huge, beefy hands wrapped around Gaeler's neck and seeing his swollen tongue emerging from his throttle while he, Bowler, laughed at his popping eyes. But then Gaeler's was an exceptional man. It happened very simply. Gaeler's and a friend were walking along in a town in the west of Ireland one September morning, and the friend said that he would dearly love a drink, that his tongue was hanging out, and how would he get one? Gaeler's confessed that he had no money at the moment and said he was sorry for his friend. The friend was surprised Gaeler's had no money because he was rarely without it. He looked prosperous, too, in a nice blue suit and a white shirt with an open collar. He never wore a tie, winter or summer, and he always looked good with his dark complexion and tight curly hair. His shoes always shone and his trousers were always creased. He didn't work at anything specific that anybody could see, and people who had to earn a living viewed his immaculate appearance with an indignant eye. Gaeglers said he was a factor. Just then, they came level with a small shop that had been recently opened by Bowler, where he sold vegetables and fish and fowl. The stuff was all stacked neatly on shelves or hanging from hooks. All very clean and hygienic, and obviously the shop was due to be successful. Bowler was a newcomer to the town, a countryman. He was very big. His feet were big and his body was big, and the white linen coat he wore seemed to make him even bigger. But he had a very friendly smile, and all the poorer ladies, who wore shawls and had to bargain everywhere for their food, knew that they could always get a halfpenny off a herring from Bowler on a Friday. "Excuse me now a moment," said Gaeglers to his friend, and turned and went into the little shop. There was a lady buying a hen, so he waited politely while she probed the animal. If she had been a surgeon, she couldn't have given the hen a better biological examination, Gaeglers thought. She did everything but ask for a birth certificate. Bowler was very patient and pointed out the hen's good points and explained that it was a boiling fowl and not one for the oven. He concealed nothing about the hen's origin and finally effected a sale. "Some of them are tough," he said to Gaeglers with a smile when she had gone. "The hens or the dames?" Gaeglers asked. Bowler was examining him curiously. Gaeglers knew from the look in Bowler's eyes that he recognized him and had heard talk about him, and that the proposition he was about to make would come as no surprise. He dramatized it a bit on that account, looking swiftly here and there, and then more or less speaking with his lips closed. "Like a salmon or two?" he asked, and watched the thoughts on the honest countenance. Bowler's thoughts were clear. He wanted salmon. They would not be legitimate salmon, but poached ones. Therefore, their price would be lower and his profit bigger, and he had many customers clamoring for them because they were scarce. He fell to the dishonest temptation with a sigh. "I might," he said. "How much?" "Very special," said Gaeglers. "3 bob a pound." This was a third of the price prevailing for the legitimates. "All right," Bowler said. "You give me a pound note," said Gaeglers, "a gesture of good faith for the fisherman, and you can pay the rest on delivery." Bowler handed over a pound. Gaeglers pocketed it and then joined his friend and said, "We will go and have a drink now, my friend. There's a sucker born every minute." Bowler is still waiting for his salmon. Gaeglers went home all right. He paid Bowler a call every Friday and bought 3 or 4 herrings to take home for dinner. If Gaeglers talked at all in the busy shop, he always brought in the word honesty. He had good fun for a long time with Bowler, watching the blood mounting in his face and seeing the big fists clenching. Bowler couldn't attack him in front of the customers. If he wished, he could go to the police and tell them that he had been defrauded over buying illicit salmon. One Friday in December, Gaeglers paid his weekly call, looking for herrings. There was a tall man in the shop. He had 3 large feathered animals hanging from each hand. He put them on the counter. Boulder went to the cash box and took out a lot of notes. He handed them over to the tall man. 18 pounds, said Bowler, and not a penny more. 3 pounds each is not much, said the man. I wish I could get my money as easy, said Bowler. Gaeglers was interested. What kind of ducks are those? He asked. The man laughed. Them's not ducks, he said. They're wild geese. Do they lay golden eggs? Gaeglers asked, or what? The man laughed. Goodbye, said the bowler, and went out. Gaeglers followed him. He didn't even wait to buy the herrings. Could we go and have a drink? He asked the man, who was stowing away the notes. We could, said the man. Why not? He was taller than Gaeglers. His face was very tanned. He smelled of turf and heather and things like that. He had a slow, loping walk. Call me Tom, he said. They went into a pub. I'm interested in those birds, said Gaeglers. I never thought that you could sell one of those birds for that much money. How much does it cost you to rear them? Tom laughed again. Man, you're a caution, he exclaimed. You don't rear them, you shoot them. They're wild geese. Do you know how much those 6 birds cost me? How much? 4 pence halfpenny, said the man. The price of 1 cartridge. I got the 6 of them with 1 shot. Gaeglers added up in his mind. He thought the profits were fabulous. It was a source of income to be tapped, and he had never even heard about it. Is it difficult to shoot him? He asked. No, Tom said. You just cross a bit of bog to a lonely mountain lake, sit down on your fanny, wait until they light on the water, and then let 'em have it. He knocked off a pint of beer, hardly moving his Adam's apple. Gaeglers was impressed. I'm very interested in this, he said. The next time you are going after these birds, would it be possible for me to go with you? Tom looked Gaeglers up and down. You could come, he said. It's a bit lonely on your own. I'd be glad of company. If we kill a lot, you could have a share. How's that? That's fine, said Gaeglers. Have another pint. He was thinking hard. If this fellow could get 18 pounds for 6 geese, how many could Gaeglers get for 20? It would set him up all winter. If you could get 6 geese with 1 cartridge fired from a shotgun, how many could you get if you could borrow a cannon? The thing was to get to know the ground and then decide on tactics. He would have to go out into the country, he supposed. Gaeglers didn't like the country. The nearest he wanted to get to the country was a bench in the park in the town where he could read the racing results in the sun. Still, if a thing like this could be organized, it could mean a lot. So one morning, about a week later, Gaeglers alighted from a bus in the street of a small village and shivered. He was wearing a lightweight blue suit and an open-necked white shirt and thin shoes with pointed toes. The sun was shining coldly outside the bus. Inside, behind the sheltering glass, it had seemed almost hot. Tom was there. Gaeglers winced at his hand clasp. Tom shook his head when he had looked him over. Will you be cold on the mountain in them clothes? He asked. Gaeglers slapped his chest. Not me, he boasted. I'm the warmest-blooded man in the 26 counties. Lead me to those geese. All right, said Tom. We'll go after the geese. They called at Tom's house to collect the guns. He gave Gaeglers a single-barreled gun that he had borrowed. His own was double-barreled, old and well cared for. Gaeglers hefted his gun. He thought it was light. He threw it in the air and caught it on the way down. It was after midday when they set out. There was a gently sloping mountain at the back of the house, covered with faded heather and sedge. It looked solid and yellow. We just have to climb up there and beyond a bit to the lake, Tom said. That's the stuff, said Gaeglers. It will be dark by 4, Tom said, so they should be flighting a bit before that. First, they walked along a dirt road that had been made so people could bring down their turf from the bogs. That was all right. It was firm and good underfoot, even though Gaeglers could feel some of the stones trying to rip through the soles of his thin shoes. The road faded away then, and they had to take to the side of the mountain. At once, one of Gaeler's feet went into soft bog, and he felt the water in his shoe. He howled and tried to pull back, and the other shoe went bogging as well. Tom hauled him out. "Keep off to the soft bits," he advised. "Come after me and walk where I walk." Gaeler's was cursing vividly. The water in his shoes was cold. Tom wore rubber boots that came nearly to his knees. Gaeler's walked in Tom's steps, but it was like walking into a little pool each time. His socks were squelching. He cursed and then took to jumping from tussock to tussock. Sometimes he missed a tussock, and the weight of the jump sank his legs to the shin in brown slime. It was a grand day. The sky was steel blue. The wind was from the north. Some of the bog pools had a thin sheeting of ice. Gaeglers didn't notice those things. The song of the bog lark meant nothing to him. He was unhappy. He was sweating. The gentle slope of the mountain was gentle only from a distance. It seemed to Gaeglers that it was a perpendicular cliff now. Tom was ahead, walking easily with a free swinging stride. Gaeglers was trying to keep up with them. There was a band across his chest, and every now and again he had to cough. His mouth was dry. His tongue seemed to be hanging out on his chin. He let his feet go where they willed. He became used to the squelching in his shoes. All he wanted was that the pilgrimage should come to an end. He could have called out and begged Tom to stop and rest, but pride wouldn't let him admit that a man he regarded as an inferior country gob could do something he couldn't do. After an hour, Tom stopped and rested on an outcropping of rock. Gaeglers labored up to him. His lungs seemed to have shrunk. They couldn't get enough air. The light gun he was carrying seemed as heavy as 200 weight of coal. He sat down, trying to hide the short breaths he was being forced to take, and blinking his eyes to shut out the spots dancing in front of them. Tom was nonchalantly lighting a pipe. His breathing was even. "We'll be there in about another hour," he said. Gaeglers wanted to die. Tom was leaning on his elbow. "It's worth a little walk up here to look at that view," he was saying. "Man, it's powerful." He carefully kept his eyes away from the pitiful wretch beside him. You sweat when you climb, but when you sit down on the side of a mountain in a north wind, the wind soon dries the sweat and then explores every opening in your clothes. Gaeglers shivered. He might as well have been dressed in light cotton as the suit he wore, and his 2 feet in the sodden, destroyed shoes were like 2 blocks of ice. The steel of the gun was sticking to his shivering hand. "We'll go now?" Gaeglers practically begged. "Begod," said Tom, rising. "You're a great man on a mountain." So I fooled the bastard, Gaeglers thought. The hour was a long one. Every fold of the mountain seemed to be the top. But beyond it there would be another fold. Eventually they reached the top and looked down on the sheet of lake in the valley. Gaeglers stumbled down to it behind Tom, trying to figure out how he had got into this thing. It was the sight of the crinkling notes being handed over for a few feathered animals. That was it. Otherwise it would never have struck him. Great God, give him back a few days of his life, and avarice would never again be one of his sins. There was a deep cut in a bank near the lake. Tom put him in there. But first he showed him the reed roots along the shore that had been pulled up by the geese, and he showed him the feathers on the ground. "The thing to do is to let them land," Tom said. "Don't move a muscle or blink an eye when you hear them coming in. Just let them land. And when they are nicely bunched on the water, let them have it. I'll go over the far side, and when they take off into the wind, I may get a crack at them." Gaeglers could only nod a reply, and then Tom was gone. Gaeglers closed his eyes. He had never been so utterly exhausted in his life. He slept. The cold woke him. The sun was lower in the sky, and the wind was whistling in the heather where he sheltered. His body was racked with bouts of shivering. He had to clench his jaws to keep his teeth from chattering. He felt light in the head. He tried to bury himself deeper in the cleft. The ground was wet where his body rested. He should be in the snug of a pub in the town, warm and comforted in a smog made up of smoke and the fumes of porter. It was the first time in his life that he had ever made a mistake. It better be worth it, this mistake. He tried to think of 20 birds at £3 each. 60 pounds. That would be worth this agony. The sun was gone almost entirely when a distant honking sounded in the sky. The geese came in V formation from the crab-apple green sunset and then swung wide and came from behind him so as to land against the wind. His heart was pounding. He waited, and there was a frightening swishing of wings over his head and a great rustling and splashing as 30 big bodies hit the water in a little bay right in front of his eyes. He raised the gun to his shoulder and sighted it and pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. He stood up, cursing and wrenching at the thing. He had forgotten to take off the safety catch. There was a frightened honking from the geese as he stood there, and then they rose from the water. Their great wings spread and seemed to shoot straight up into the air like rockets. He fired the gun. It made a loud bang. He waited to hear bodies hitting the water. The great flight drew together, going higher and higher, honking indignantly, and then they swung away to the other side of the world. They were all alive. They were all healthy. Tom came over to him. "Too bad," he said. "They never came near me. I couldn't get a shot at them at all." Gaeglers was practically crying. "All that for nothing," he said. "All that for nothing." "Maybe the next time," said Tom consolingly. If there had been a cartridge in the gun, Gaeglers might have shot him. He followed Tom up and then finally down the mountain. At least, he thought miserably, going down a mountain is easier than coming up a mountain. It might have been if there had been a moon, but there was no moon. He fell several times. Once his chin hit the gun, the skin split, and he bled profusely over his clothes. Near the place where the road should be, he saw Tom's bulk in front of him, and then the ground seemed very soft under Gaeglers, and he slid gently into a bog hole. It was a good thing he couldn't have seen by day the green slime covering it. He tasted it now as the water closed over him. He thrashed with his arms, and his head came out of it, and he shouted. He felt strong arms pulling at him, and then he stood there. He was bereft of even blasphemy. Tom said a strange thing. "I didn't mean that," he said. Gaeglers couldn't appreciate it then. They tried to squeeze some of the slime from his hair and the worst of it from his clothes. Tom put him into the bus. The conductor took a poor view of his going home in the bus at all. Tom talked to him through the window. "Listen, Gaeglers," he said. "Something you should know. I'm Bowler's brother, and you shouldn't have swindled Bowler. Wild geese are really only worth £1 each. Good night." And then he was gone. Gaeglers thought about it. He thought about it for a long time, and he came to an inane conclusion. It was a terrible, expensive pound, Gaeglers concluded. Gaeglers and the Wild Geese by Walter Macken.